Good afternoon. I'm Sergeant Darby Coulson. Today, I'm here with the Secretary of the Army, the Honorable Dan Driscoll, a former Cav Scout who deployed in defense of our nation during the global war on terror. A native of Boone, North Carolina, Secretary Driscoll comes from a family with a rich legacy of military history. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Thank you for having me.
As you know, sir, the Army is older than the nation it defends. And this year, we're celebrating our 250th anniversary. Can you talk a little bit about what inspired you to serve and what service means to you?
So I'm third generation Army. My granddad served as a Dakota in World War II. My dad was an infantryman in Vietnam. And then, as you stated, I was a cavalry scout many moons ago. And growing up and hearing from my dad about what his experience was like for his dad and then talking to him about his service, it was one of the defining characteristics of kind of what made them who they were. They referenced it in kind of most troubling times of life. When things were bad, they kind of leaned on that experience. And then when things were good, it gave them context to appreciate it more. And so I can remember finishing up high school up in the mountains of North Carolina, being ready to go to UNC Chapel Hill for school and reading this book, Absolutely American, that told the story of these three soldiers who went to West Point and then deployed to Iraq. And it just kind of it sparked this flame in me that essentially said man, I got to do this. And so ended up taking as many classes as I possibly could over the summers. It was right when the surge was starting to happen in Iraq, graduating early and trying to get to the Army as fast as possible.
So you commissioned in 2007. Can you tell us about your experience as a junior officer and what do you miss the most about it?
So I might have given a different answer before getting back in. This is today's the 5-week anniversary of being Secretary of the Army. What I miss the most, very sincerely and genuinely, is just soldiers. You were all the best Americans I've ever met at scale. Every single one I meet is generally one of my favorite conversations that I'm going to have in that week. My wife, whose family hasn't served, I don't think any of her uncles or aunts, it's just not part of their family culture. I've been with her a very long time, and so she got to experience our Army days. And she reflects that now that she's back in, it has also reminded her that the best phase of our life was spending time with soldiers. And so what I miss the most about those days is also what makes me the most grateful about these days, which is just getting to spend time with American soldiers.
So sitting here now as the Secretary of the Army, what experiences are you looking forward to the most?
I think getting out there, we're at week 5 this week, and we've basically set up a rhythm where we try to get out of the building every other week, get to bases, just spend time with soldiers, do PT, eat at the DFACs, go watch their training, learn what's going well, learn what's not going well. And I think kind of centering everything we're doing around trying to improve the things that aren't going well. I think the American soldier as an individual is vastly superior to any other warfighter in the world.
Was there anything from your Army experience that you found valuable transitioning into the civilian workforce?
The Army completely rewired my brain. It forced me to do things I never could have done. And so it actually changed the operating system of my brain in a way that I would say nearly everything post the Army, any successes I've had are all tied to the Army time.
I think a lot of veterans will relate to what you just said. I think the Army does such a good job of laying a foundation that regardless of what you build on top of it, the characteristics and the values of a soldier will always remain.
I think that's right. And then I think a lot of the things that the Army gives you, helping pay for school, I've used that. I used the GI Bill for law school. I used to get my first mortgage. I received benefits when I was in school. I mean, my dad is at the VA. He's 78 years old and goes to the VA for all his checkups. And I think all of those are incredibly important programs to care for soldiers. But actually, I think when we pitch those as the reason to join the Army, we commoditize the Army experience. I'd actually say that the reason to join the Army is it makes you this much better version of yourself, and then the reward is that post-Army you, whether it's after a 25 or 35-year career or just after 3 years, the reward is that you gets to go live the rest of your life as a better spouse and a better parent and a better business owner. And so at least that's my experience with the Army.
You've already had the opportunity to travel quite a bit. Can you share any recent highlights from these travels?
So a couple of weeks ago, we went to the West Coast. We started in upstate Washington, went to JBLM, stopped in Seattle to meet with Microsoft, went down to Palo Alto to meet with OpenAI and Meta, and Google, went to Los Angeles, met with Palantir and Anduril, and a very cool 3D metal printing company that can make all sorts of interesting things. We then went out to the desert in California for Project Convergence, like the capstone tech event for the Army, and then went down to the border to Fort Huachuca to see 10th Mountain take over the border mission. And so it was this incredibly rich week of getting to mix civilians and soldiers together. And I guess my big takeaway was optimism, that I think, whether accurate or inaccurate, it's been portrayed that a lot of our best and brightest tech companies that have kind of caught the world on fire in the last decade or two are not interested in helping. And my experience from going to a lot of their headquarters was they desperately want to come help. They want to be beside soldiers in the field. They want to take the generative AI models that they've created and figure out how do they give them to us and give them to the soldiers to make their lives better and make them safer and increase their odds, that if we ever send them abroad to fight a war on our behalf, that they come home safely. And so it left me with this very kind of glowing positive feeling that, like, if we can actually just put into place the right mechanisms to help those companies come stand behind soldiers and learn from them, we'll get this very virtuous cycle of innovation that I think will help make our country and our Army stronger.
Are there any significant obstacles that the Army faces today, and how do you plan to rectify them?
I think one of the biggest lessons learned from Ukraine is with the ability for drones to swarm. And if the data is accurate that Russia has manufactured around 1 million in the last year, and if you just thought about how that can change how we move our Humvees and our tanks and what that can do, I think our ability to communicate between our sensors and our people and our things has to be near instant, and it has to be protected, and it has to allow commanders and decision makers around the world who might be over the horizon to help empower those warfighters to be as effective and violent as they can be. And I don't think we're there yet. I think what's nice is we're very close, and a lot of our colleagues in Special Forces and a lot of the different units have been testing out technologies that we may need to scale. And so General George and SMA and I have talked about it kind of endlessly, of how do we speed up the process of getting those communication tools into the hands of the soldiers on the field.
Transitioning to advice to the force, is there anything you would say to soldiers that are kind of on the fence between getting out or staying in?
I guess what I would say is, if you're thinking about it, both paths can be amazing. My experience is my time in the Army, as I reflect on getting to be back and compare and contrast, was the best time of my life, and I'm grateful to get a second opportunity to be around soldiers.
Mr. Secretary, thank you again for sitting down with me today. It's been an honor. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.